We arrived in London, England in 1988. I remember coming out of the airport. We were greeted by a gentleman that had a sign with our last name, RG. He took us into his car, and as I gazed out of the window, it was evening time, and I saw the traffic lights and exclaimed, "Daddy, London reminds me a lot of America." My dad marveled that I remembered America's traffic lights. The gentleman took us to the hotel, and we stayed there for a couple of months. It was a really nice hotel. We had maids come in every so often during the week. They used to vacuum the carpet. On one occasion, my caretaker had told me not to pick up debris from the carpet because the maid would arrive momentarily. However, I picked up the dirt from the carpet, and the maid who came in to do the vacuuming asked if somebody had been there to vacuum. And I told her no, but I didn't tell her that I had picked up all the dirt from the carpet because it was my secret. I don't know why I did it. I just thought it would be something I could do because as children, we were normally indoors all day and didn't go anywhere for a long time. And when we did, we went to a beautiful park with water fountains, springs, and acres of land all around it. The park in London had lots of acres of land. I remember it was a sunny day, and I remember on one occasion I needed to go to the restroom, and as I proceeded to the men's restroom, I was stopped by an Indian man who in his broken English and sign language, pointed out I was going in the wrong direction. We had a family friend who was in London. They too were also part of the Nigerian embassy. They had lots of children, and many times we would go visit them. On one occasion, the mom of the household asked if I and my siblings were hungry and had made us food, and she asked us if we wanted more food, and we said yes, and she made us something to eat. And then she asked us a third time if we wanted food, and then she made us eat more, and she made us more food to eat. And then at last she exclaimed, "You children eat so much food." So I learned not to ask for more food. It would be a long time we visited them. Some years later, they all moved to a big house where we visited them often. Their mom was no longer with them, but may have been in the United States or Nigeria. The oldest daughter was in charge of making their food, while the only boy in the family developed a bad habit of bullying his younger sister. I don't know what he did to her, but her pleas for help were usually ignored. After the hotel, I and my family found a beautiful home in the northwestern part of London. The school I went to was called St. Agnes. I didn't have many friends at school. Girls usually had cliques, so it was difficult to make friends in my classroom. I found it easier to befriend my sister's friends, which she wasn't too happy about. School in London was a lot different than Lagos. The education in Nigeria was family oriented. In Nigeria, you learn life skills in school in order to survive. In London, schooling was restricted to learning about English, math, spelling, physical education, netball, cricket, football, soccer, running, swimming, and team sport competitions. Learning how to dance with a partner, playing a musical instrument, and learning about British history. As a youth, I found my experience of London to be boring because it was limited to school, watching the television, and a few family outings to the park. While I was in Nigeria, my favorite program was learning the Igbo language. However, in London, by the age of 9, one particular programming that caught my interest was the pillar of salt. This pillar of salt was Lot's wife. In Nigeria, I remember a Bible story about Lot and how his wife looked back. As a result, the punishment was she was turned into a pillar of salt. At the age of 9, my young mind wondered if the Bible was real, and if so, if the same voices spoke to me when I was chastised for stealing a pencil sharpener in Nigeria would speak to me again in London to tell me if the Bible was real. But nobody spoke to me. As I waited for an answer, nobody answered me. Mr. Brewster was the headmaster or principal at St. Agnes. He was very passionate about the children singing church songs, performing Christmas plays, dramas, hosted African events. I remember sitting in the gym and that served as our cafeteria and singing with the other children from all classes. Caesar Augustus has said it, we all must go home to be counted. This theme was centered on Joseph and Mary, who had to return to Jerusalem to be counted in a census. According to Roman rule, they both had to go to their paternal city, Jerusalem, to be counted in the census. Once a year, Africans and/or African Europeans at my school, St. Agnes, were allowed to wear African clothing. Mr. Brewster would call the local newspapers to take pictures of us. It was an exhilarating experience. I had never had African clothing, but my friends would always let me borrow their African clothing, which allowed me to make headlines twice for 2 years. My dad, excited as he was, sent the newspapers to Nigeria to his room of treasured possessions. We stayed in London for 3 years. It was December of 1991. My dad had asked us if we had wanted to go to America to stay with our mother, and we gladly said yes.